want to say. All right. So looking at this preliminary analysis based on those four areas. So the number of cases that this represents is about 300 plus, around 330 cases out of the 1,600. Out of the 1,000 cases I have from the Commission on Human Rights, because I haven't really processed the second cache of data that I got from another source yet. But so it roughly translates to about a fifth of all the cases. And it includes my data also includes information on where and when incidents such as extrajudicial killings, torture, and forced disappearances have taken place, who the victims are. Usually the clearest piece of information is who the victims are, especially if it's a killing. Now the question is more of who the perpetrators were, but there is enough information I have through other sources to try to triangulate and to answer that question. Okay, I realize I've been going on a bit too long and I have to speed up now. So from what we see here, most of the cases are of extrajudicial killings. It's about 76%. Oh, I'm sorry, no, this is distributed by region. So based on my data, most of the cases involve extrajudicial killings. It's about 76% of all cases. And forced disappearances account for 20%, while torture and rape about 4%, although I suspect it's only because it's been underreported. And the highest number of incidents, as you see here, are in Eastern Visayas and Central Luzon. And then also from my data, I find that activists affiliated with leftist organizations, affiliated with churches, labor unions, and local associations, as well as basically civilians, non-combatants, they comprise about 66% of all victims. Okay. So very quickly now, why does the big question, of course, although this is probably familiar to people who are familiar with the Philippines, why are the numbers particularly high in 2005, 2006, before declining in 2007? Okay. Oh, sorry, and just one thing, and why, here we can see that the military, intelligence and intelligence security forces, as well as the police, are basically, they basically account for, they have been implicated in most of the cases during this period. And even here, I just have to say, even when we're not sure who the perpetrators were, my impression from reading each of the case files is, if I had to guess, it would be basically military or paramilitary forces that would be involved in these cases. So why these particular years? This gentleman, very useless of the term, General Jovito Palparan, was a general whose career really took off under the presidency of Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo. So if you remember the first slide that I showed you with the state violence statistics per presidency, his story coincides with the story of Gloria's presidency, Macapagal-Arroyo's presidency itself. So what happened in 2000, from the end of the Marcos dictatorship, elections, especially national elections, have taken place in the Philippines like clockwork every 6 years. But then in 2001, President Joseph Estrada was deposed. I won't go into it. But basically it was because of charges of corruption and plunder, and people took to the streets. And in a non-constitutional manner, Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, as the vice president at the time, was installed into office. However, so in 2004, elections as scheduled took place. But in 2005, tellingly, serious questions on her credibility came to light in public when evidence started to circulate of the strong possibility that she basically stole the election wholesale. And so 2005-2006, she was fighting all sorts of impeachment challenges in Congress and in the Senate. And so this is the narrative that, this is the typical explanation that people will have for the sudden increase in state violence during this period, that essentially the president enabled the military to take out their opponents, especially those on the left. If you recall what I said earlier, a lot of the victims were actually left-wing activists, and these are not necessarily insurgents. These are members of the legal political parties that contest elections. And there are there's documentary evidence for this campaign of violence. I myself have had access to secret documents that really show intelligence assessments of where these left-wing parties have gained electoral successes and why they should be treated like, why they need to be included in the military's counterinsurgency plans. I've seen orders of battle as well for some provinces. And what I've also seen in those cases, both in Region 3 and in Region 8, is a similar pattern across time and space. Red tagging, meaning people are accused of being communists, surveillance, harassments, death threats, and then they are assassinated in similar ways, usually by two people on a motorcycle. And the Region 3 and Region 5, which I showed you with the highest number of deaths, these are also areas where Jovito Palparan had been in command for those same periods of time, or at least he will initially be there, and then the number of killings will very clearly go up. Okay, so however, and this is the insight that I have yet to explore more fully, is that I think that the difference between state repression under Marcos and in the post-Marcos sort of so-called democratic period, is that local factors can account for a lot more of the political violence. It looks like state violence because the military and the police are involved, but actually there are local factors, and I'll just give you a few examples before I close, because I'm out of time. So on one hand, these are some cases from Central Luzon. On one hand, even if you don't have time to read, these cases involve military as the identified possible perpetrators in extrajudicial killings. But these cases are also oddly connected to strikes against labor activists in Hacienda Luisita. And Hacienda Luisita is a huge plantation of land that has been controversial because of attempts to somehow evade land reform. And most importantly, this is land that belongs to the Cojuangco family, or used to belong in large part to the Cojuangco family, which is Corazon Aquino's family and the current president's family. But in 2005 to 2006, the incidents of political violence and state violence in Central Luzon coincided with these kinds of local cases. And so this is an area that I really have yet to explore in my research. Okay, I really better stop now. Thank you very much for your okay, I think I'll just only give myself 2 minutes then, because I've taken a bit too much time for the presentation. So, are there any comments or questions? Yes, please.
Well, I think it's very interesting and very tentative in the sense that you've opened up what is obviously, frankly, a minefield. You know, and the regions that you've picked obviously are linked to the kind of two main families that you're involved in.
Yes.
other things have changed since the Marcos period. You know, the technology of killing has improved incredibly. But also the fact that we can monitor it a lot better. You know, one that had the feeling about the Marcos period, that a hell of a lot of people got bumped off and there was just no record in people's memories. And whether anybody has actually gone back as a kind of oral history project and tried to look at that, I don't know. Are these sorts of things going to sort of influence the simple numbers that you're presenting? Because the numbers you're presenting are very striking. And because they're absolute numbers, obviously, and I don't know what your data sources are in terms of reliability. But they, as a ballpark figure, they're impressive. I mean, in a sense, they couldn't be this strong without containing some element of truth. But are events and bits of technology and so forth that have come along between the two periods perhaps material to the question of why there should be such differences?
Okay. Well, before I respond, is there any other question or comment? I'll just take it. Oh yes, please.
If I look at your presentation, seems like Philippines' political model is very similar to Latin American model. Like, I mean, the difference is like in Latin America, the democracy has been going on for more than 200 years, and yet it's still unstable until now. So do you think it has something to do with the colonial knowledge that is happening here, like the state repression and stuff? I mean, yeah.
Okay. I think I'll just take these two questions then and move on. First, have we improved on our records, and does that account for the statistics? I don't believe so. For at least two reasons. First, the human rights NGOs, by and large, which had been primarily responsible for documenting human rights violations during the Marcos years, although their job was far more difficult at the time, they're the ones that are still have continued on in the post-Marcos years to document these kinds of violations. So in the sense that there is some sort of internal reliability of the data, I think that I think that the comparability across time is credible. And the second major reason is that finally, after 30 years since 1986, the Commission on Human Rights is starting to deal with redress for victims of human rights violations under the Marcos regime. And so a lot of this documentation is being verified, and they're going back to these cases, and so for that reason, I mean, there will probably be a lot of dust, and then eventually it will settle. But I think that the data across time, across the last 4 years or so, I think these patterns will more or less hold, even if we improve on the data. Having said that, my data set only starts from 2001. And it's a little complicated to go into it, but basically, because of what was happening in 2005 and 2006, the quality of information from 2001 onwards was greatly improved. Let me put it that way, because human rights NGOs were very careful about fact-finding investigations, and because the UN Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial killings actually visited the Philippines in 2007. Okay, and then very quickly, yes, just to very quickly answer the question and move on with the panel. Yes, the Philippines is a Latin American country stuck somewhere in Southeast Asia. And sorry to be a little facetious about it, but yes, it's a cacique democracy, as Benedict Anderson has said. Okay, thank you very much. And I'd like to now call on our final panelist. Associate Professor Awang Hasmadi of the International Islamic University of Malaysia. He did his PhD in social anthropology at St. John's College, Cambridge, and he's currently Associate Professor at the International Islamic University of Malaysia. He will speak about Sarawak.
Yes.
Yes. Its role in the history of nation building, as well as the ongoing processes of, I don't know, state building, I suppose,
Yes.
today, as well as the growing discontent among the people of Sarawak with the Malaysian Federation.
Thank you very much. Good evening and selamat datang. For those who are well versed in Bahasa Melayu. I'm a student of anthropology, and anthropologists love listening to stories. Now I think as I grow old, it's my turn to tell stories. And this is a story about a country that does not seem to have a clear vision on where it's going, and a country that cannot deal well with plurality and diversity, and a country that is obsessed with a zero-sum game, and also obsessed with the ideology of Malay supremacy. So this is basically a story of a dream, an initial dream of development that slowly disappears with disappointment, deceptions, and finally now we are in a state of disillusionment. Before I left for the conference, there was this survey that was done by the Merdeka Center. It's a kind of think tank that was published in the local newspaper. And according to the survey, most Sarawakians, about 54%, believe that they have been treated unfairly by Putrajaya. Especially the Chinese say so. Many believe that the state is being better off without joining Malaysia, about 49%. And the survey of course also mentioned about a noticeable spike in the feeling that Sarawak has been unfairly treated. 1/3 believe that the state is worse off being in Malaysia. Not all agree that Malaysia is bad. Some believe that Malaysia is there is still hope in Malaysia, and some believe, about 85% believe in autonomy. Probably I cannot mention the word autonomy in Kuala Lumpur, but over here I try to dare myself to say that 85% respondents or the survey said that they favor greater autonomy. 95% support about 95%. Chinese won, and the biggest opposition, of course, reflect the opinion of the Chinese, who want more autonomy in education, and 75% support the struggle of one very very popular group nowadays, Sarawak for Sarawakians, about 75%. Yeah? So this reflects some the current feeling in the state of Sarawak, and this brings me to the story about this very famous and very charismatic Iban leader who early in the formation of Malaysia prophesied about the entity, yeah? And he likened Malaysia to the sugar cane. Yeah? And what does he say? I think everyone knows taboo in local terminology is called taboo. And I don't know how. What was your experience with sugarcane? When I was young, I used to take taboo, bite it, cut it and bite it. And so those who have this experience would probably tell you that the sugarcane has different tastes. Yeah, if you bite it at the base, you feel the sweetness there, and as you go further up, then you feel it's very. This is what he says here. In Iban, I read Iban. Anang aja manua Malaysia tu bakal tebu manis di pun tabar di ujung pun. Yeah. In English, it means let us hope that Malaysia will not be like the sugar cane, sweet in the beginning but dismal towards the end. That is precisely that which is happening to Malaysia right now. It used to be very sweet in the beginning because on on Sabah or on Sarawak agreeing to the formation of Malaysia, they were promised about 200 million ringgit at the time, I suppose. We didn't call ringgit at the time, we called dollar, $200 million grant for development. And for Sarawak, because Sarawak is as huge as Peninsular Malaysia, Sarawak was promised 300 million grant, dollar grant. So Najib would describe that kind of grant as a donation, I suppose, but that was the early beginning of bribery being used to, to encourage Sarawakians and Sabahans to agree to the formation of Malaysia. So what is this whole story all about? This brings me back to how we could look at this whole process. In an article entitled The Integrative Revolution, one renowned American anthropologist, Clifford Geertz, mentioned several issues besetting newly independent states that were once colonized. And he mentioned states like Congo, Ceylon, Morocco, India, Indonesia, and Malaya. Malaya, known as Malaya. Geertz mentioned that in the case of Congo, the biggest issue that hinders unity is tribalism. For India, it is the problem of communalism, involving various religious contrasts. We also have that kind of problem. In the case of Sri Lanka, the main issue is the conflict between the Tamil minority and the Sinhalese majority. This was and of course Iraq, the conflict between Shia and its Sunni majority. Considering the fact, and he mentioned about Indonesia, in the case of our ever-watching neighbor Indonesia, the major obstacle to national unity is the geographical separation of thousands of islands that constitute the Republic of Indonesia. Considering the fact that Malaysia was established in 1963 and Geertz's book was coincidentally published in the same year, Geertz made no reference to the new entity, but did mention about the problem affecting Malaya then, that is detrimental to its very existence and survival. And this is Malaya's deep-rooted communalism or racism. So Geertz already mentioned about the problem of Malaya then. And this problem of communalism continues even until now. So the main purpose of my paper is to discuss not only the issue of nation building in Malaysia, but also the issue of the importance of, since I mentioned this great Iban chief, the importance of indigenous knowledge that is often marginalized or cited, put aside in some very important issues as to the fate of the nation. I have mentioned Tumenggung Juga here because he was considered to be one of the most charismatic leader and also a leader that who really was honest or truthful to serve. And in the early process of the formation of Malaysia, he was one of the most vocal leaders from Borneo. The other one was, of course, Donald Stevens from Sabah, who had a very strong reservation about the viability of Malaysia. And why Tumenggung Juga? During the British colonial, Tumenggung Juga was an Iban leader who came from the area known as Bale here, the area where Derek Freeman did his research. And during the British colonial days, he was chosen as a Dayak chief of Pengundu by the government because of his capacity for leadership, and whose responsibility was to help maintain law and order. And during the period of the Brooke rule, there were many qualities expected of an Iban person before he could get himself elected by the members of his tribe. And some of these qualities include bravery, very brave, resolute, firm, not fickle-minded, knowledge and wisdom of the law and the ways of the forefathers, very important. Juga had those qualities. Knowledge of the forefathers include the knowledge of omens, omens, or what is often known in anthropology as the augury, very popular among the Greeks in the ancient history, and the ability to read signs. So the ability to tell and trust your gut feeling. Sometimes you only have that feeling, the gut feeling, but to determine whether it is going to happen needs a lot of experience and knowledge, because they are selected and chosen by their own people. They must have the ability to handle them as well. It's not enough to just to have the quality of leadership, but to handle them. He must be articulate. For the Iban, it's very important to speak your mind, and will be very good at it. And that because the Iban in the past used to love arguments and debate. In their words, nemu jako, mean no talk or no speaking, and love challenging the influence and authority of the leader. And this was what he did exactly. Thus, an able leader must, and that's how he got chosen as one of the negotiators, one of the members of the negotiating committee. So, what were back to the feeling, the grievances that the Thracians are coming up nowadays, are mentioning nowadays. The formation of Malaysia is governed by certain conditions, yeah? And this include, let me read some of this. Includes the terms and conditions regarding religion. The religion should be Islam. These were contained in what is popularly known as the 20-point agreement. Yeah, in Sarawak it's known as the 18-point agreement. Although Sarawak mentioned about the 18-point agreement, we don't have those 18 points. Later Sabah has got the 20-point agreement. Sarawak just borrowed those ideas from Sabah. And in terms of religion, the religion should be Islam, but there should not be any state religion in Sarawak or Sabah. There should be constitutional guarantees for religious freedom. So these are the terms of the agreement. And another important one is immigration. Entry into the Borneo states would require the approval of the state concerned. And the third one, education should be a federal subject, but the present policy and system of education administration in Sabah and Sarawak should remain undisturbed and under the control of the state government. Sabah has lost this control of education. Sarawak still has somehow, because some of the matters discussed in Sarawak were not put into laws. Sarawak still has got the choice of whether to use Malay or to use English for the medium of instruction. So this, and of course, citizenship and public services. This is a matter of contention between the federal and the state government involving Sabah and Sarawak right now. There should be separate public services and commissions for each state. In recruitment in the Borneo states, preference will be given to the Borneans, and this has been badly infringed. And of course, language. Yeah, the national language. Malay should be the national language, but for a period of 10 years. Yeah, after Malaysia. Yeah. So what are what are the issues that Sarawakians are very dissatisfied right now? They are very dissatisfied with the lack of attention, broken promises and deceptions by the federal government. And to redress that, I suppose, and to put Malaysia back in order, those grievances, they demand that those grievances should be looked into. Okay.
So can I invite questions or comments from the floor, please? Actually, I have a question.
Thank you.
So how are these grievances being articulated? Is it through a political party? Is it through a social movement?
Yeah, at present we are preparing for the coming state election that would be held, I think, in May, 27th May, if I'm not mistaken. And there are many new parties that are coming up in Sarawak. But apart from that, we have one NGO that has been fighting this for this issue under the name of SAPA, Sarawak Anti-something SAPA. So it is being led by a lady. Yeah, in Sarawak, I think the only way to get some things done is to get a lady to spearhead the whole movement, because the men are easily blinded by the dollar, the ringgit. Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, please.
I think recently there was a study which showed Sarawakians are still supporting Barisan Nasional, which is the federal government.
Yes.
And that statistics was 55%.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, when you say Sarawakians are hoping for a change, or you might see a change in the future because they are grieving due to whatever was promised to them, not getting it. Why is it still 55% then?
Yeah, Sarawak is a very strange place. Yeah, although you see, yeah, as an anthropologist, I've been trying hard for almost I think 30 years already, trying to understand the character of my people, my own people. They are opposed to many things that are being implemented by the federal government, but at the same time, it's very hard for them to leave the Barisan Nasional government. Why? Because they are always fearful of the future. What the future brings, they are not sure. And of course, for the Sarawakians, Sarawakians are divided into many ethnic groups. There are about 27 of them. And it surprise you that the group that is ruling Sarawak is a minority group. It comprises of the Malay and the Melanau community. Yeah? And you have the Eniban that is the majority group, but they are so fragmented that they cannot tell whether to support Barisan or just okay. What they say is I said no tonight, but tomorrow I'll vote for Barisan still, because at least I know where I am. See, with the opposition, I do not know where they are going to take me. Yeah, this is. Sarawakians are trying hard to influence, those who are protesting, those who are expressing their unhappiness into the form of votes. But I think they have failed for so many miserable times during the election. Yeah. So we have failed. Yeah.
Well, this is all the time we have anyway for this afternoon. Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful group of people for this very diverse collection of presentations on Malaysia, the Philippines, and Indonesia. Let's give our panel